Fellas, how's it going? Ladies, oh my goodness, you look fantastic. What's up guys, it's Carney. Today I'm gonna show you how I made this. Welcome back everybody. This is episode 2 in my Samples from Mars series where I go through the everything collection from Samples of Mars that I've had for forever and finally learn what all of them actually do. I have no girlfriend, I'm not in college, I live at home. This seems like a really good use of my time. So today we're using the 360 from Mars. Let's check out what the that is. Guys, the holidays are truly upon us. The sale of the century is still going on. Every sample from Samples from Mars, 97% off. Every drum sample from Samples of Mars, 96% off. Every synth sample from Samples from Mars, 94% off. What a time to be alive, truly. Okay, let's actually figure out what the 360 from Mars is. Okay, 360 from Mars. One of the earliest multi-sampled synthesizers. Let me put on the voice real quick. The 360 Systems keyboard is a rare sample-based synth made in California in the early 80s, featuring real strings, flutes, brass, electric piano, basses, guitars, percussion, and more. Sharing similar components, EEPROMs, and an analog filter. I don't know what an EEPROM is. As some of our favorite vintage drum machines, it's no wonder the 360 is as punchy as our favorite samplers and as silky as our vintage synths. All I would say to that is if this came out in the early 80s, wouldn't that just make it it's not as silky as the vintage synth that just is a vintage synth. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Okay, TLDR, it's a synth. Specifically, it's what it just said. Like it's emulating real instruments. It's like the ones that I use that we'll get into, like E-piano, some of the strings. I use the electric guitar one, which sounded cooler than I thought it was. It doesn't sound like a real electric guitar, but like it's a cool way. We'll get into that. Even though the 360 never came close to replacing real instruments, looking back decades later, that's its charm. I really agree with that. I think that is a really good summation of what is cool about this instrument. It's not supposed to sound like real, but like the lack of reality, like that is what gives it its own character, because you can tell that it's like, no, this is like supposed to sound like an E-piano, but like that's a sound, you know, to be like, oh cool, like that sounds like fake strings. Like Just Like Heaven is a really good example of that. Like by The Cure, that's obviously like a synth that has like a string patch, but it sounds really cool. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, as previously mentioned, my computer is not doing great right now. Here's what I'll say. It works fine until I need it to. So we're gonna have a lot of frozen tracks here, and the mastering is off. Also, just an FYI, if anyone is ever like, oh my god, why is my CPU up so much? If you have mastering on it, I saved like 20% of my CPU just by turning these off. Okay, let's start up here with the Twinkle piano. So this is just an E-piano preset. Let's listen to this on its own. So what's cool about this instrument is that a lot of the presets have like specific, kind of like we talked about in the last video, they have specific macros over here that are very distinctive. Like it's not just the normal synth stuff. Like it's not just attack, decay, sustain, release, portamento. Like there's tremolo, and there's resonance is normal, but there's tremolo speed, delay time. Like just having those built in, it really helps you to sort of like give character to whatever part you're trying to come up with right from the jump. So instead of just like putting down a little line going bum bum and then having to think of like, okay, well like what would sound good on this, having the limitation of just like, okay, cool, there's a tremolo and there's a delay, I'm gonna use that. That really helps a lot towards, you know, giving an instrument character, and then using that instrument will give the beat character. And then we got just an EQ, band passing a little bit, and then I had a resonance I didn't like there. Sketch cassette. I'm not gonna show you the preset on this just because it's like, if I remember correctly, it's very simple. It's just like wearing it down, making it sound kind of crappy. And then Soothe to sort of like make up for any of the weird artifacts coming in after that. This second Twinkle piano is basically the same. It's just for a different part of the song where it's like louder. I just had it move out further to the left. I panned it out more and then turned it down a little bit. So other than that, that's all the same. Okay, electric guitars. Let me check where this is automated, because this is one of the big things about this first. This is kind of like the main one, I guess you could say. But yeah, it's bandpassed for certain parts of it. And then, so I automated the first EQ to be on for pretty much the whole song, and then at the very end I just sort of like switched to a different EQ, but rather than like automate every parameter on here, I just put on a different EQ and just had that one switch on and the other one turn off. Amazing workflow hacks, guys. What did you ever do without me? Okay, then we got Sketch Cassette on here. Let's see what preset this is. Spin cycle. Okay, so this is one cool thing in Sketch Cassette is you can make it so the wow parameter is modulating specifically the other flutter parameter, so it's just like super weird and messed up, so it just sounds very tapey and fluttery. It's also a lot of dropouts there. It's a lot of, it's worn down a lot. This is arguably my favorite sound in the whole thing, personally. And I think it's because having Sketch Cassette kind of be like the only processing past just the normal parameters of the instrument makes it almost feel like plugging it into just like a tape machine on its own and just like really driving it, and like it's almost like console-y, maybe? I don't know. I think it sounds sick. And then we got a second one here. This turns into a Guitarmony. If there's not Guitarmonies on it, probably not mine. So let me see. This might be the same Sketch Cassette preset. And it is. All right. So Sketch Cassette preset's the same, but this one I did put a pedal on. I don't know. I may have talked about this in the previous video. Pedal is such a cheat code. Like, it's super simple, but I love how this sounds. Everybody should use this. Like, just a little, even just like putting it on there and like just playing with the EQ, like it like saturates it in such a way where like the EQ is not just like taking stuff away, it's also like adding more in other places. It's a really good stock instrument or stock plugin. And then Soothe on that one too, just to clean it up. Here's both of them together. Okay, and now the bass. So I know I just said that the like fake electric guitar is my favorite sound on the track. This was my favorite thing to play and come up with the part for. It's a super simple sounding bass. One of the biggest things, there's like a filter envelope, and I turned it down so it's like kind of opening when you hold it out for a long time, which you can hear in some of like the low notes where it like kind of goes like wah. Let's agree for me to not do that again. Okay, Jesus, we got a lot of plugins on this. This would take a million years for me to go through all of this anyway, so I'm just gonna tell you what each of these do. TDR Nova is a dynamic EQ. If you do not have a dynamic EQ, this one I believe is free. It works great, and everyone should start using dynamic EQs. They solve so many problems. Specifically on basses, I have found, and I had a friend tell me this and I've heard it ever since, there's just a lot of buildup around like 100 to 200, and it really like takes up a lot of space in the mix. So if you just cut that out, you can kind of lose some of the beef. But if you use a dynamic EQ, it's just a little bit of like compression every time that specific area hits. All your low end stuff, and even if you use it on like higher end stuff, like it's really good to get used to it. It is an invaluable tool. Everyone should have a dynamic EQ and start using it. Love End, I have talked about this before. It's basically just R bass. If you use R bass, it's just like a low end saturator. Like you pick a frequency and then you can like up the dB on just that frequency, and it'll just like beef up the signal a lot. Blend EQ is just like a kind of a console looking EQ by Analog Obsession. Love End's by Analog Obsession too. Those are both great. And then I put pedal on that. I took away some of the treble. I took away some of the mids, and I added a little bit of bass on the distort preset. Then I added some vibrato, and I know what you're thinking. You're probably like, Carney, why the hell would you add vibrato to a bass? And the answer is, I stole it from someone else. Feel free to steal it from me. I put cabinet on it, which I don't do all the time, but in the case of this beat, like the way the mix ended up working out, it just helped kind of like make it feel like it was in a room, and that worked out for me. That's just the sidechain from the kick, nothing really to see there. And then track spacer, which is in some ways, I guess you could argue is also kind of a dynamic EQ, but you can sidechain it. So this is sidechain to the guitars that we just listened to. And when those come on, in the high end, it kind of just like takes a little, it just pushes down a little bit on the bass to let those guitars come through. I am gonna skip the drums. Well, I guess I won't skip. I'll tell you what they are. Vinylistic is by a company called Beat Skills. It takes up a lot of CPU, but I do like the sound. It's very like old school, like kind of boom bappy sounds. And it was pretty cheap if I remember right, so maybe go get that if you're interested in that sound. The hi-hat, this looks completely insane. I just grabbed a hi-hat that I have in my library, put it in a simpler, put an arpeggiator on it to give it like a and then a little bit of compression, a little bit of redux to kind of like break it up a little bit, little auto pan, little filter. This does lead me to an important thing though, which is this stuff over here, the millisecond thing to the right. So I have always been one of those people where I put in all the samples, if I'm using samples, or maybe I do MIDI or whatever, and then I would go in and hit the command button on my Mac and try to like inch it forward or inch it back to like get the groove right and stuff. And it would always be really annoying, especially when I would do that and I would be like, well, now I have like this other section I want to make and I had to copy it over and still make sure the timing's right, etc. And with this, you just, with each individual track, you just put everything on the grid and then use this to either put it back or put it forward as much as you want to. I knew this existed before. I don't know why I did it the other way. I will be doing it this way from now on. If you have Ableton, well, I'm pretty sure they have this in like every single DAW. Yeah, play around with that. I think it's a much quicker way to like get a better groove, because you definitely shouldn't just leave things on the grid unless that's like specifically the type of music you're making. Like you should always give it a little bit of like bounce, and this is just a much easier way to do that. This is the same kick. It's just honestly the only reason it's different is because this one is a little bit ahead of the beat and this one's a little bit behind the beat. It's just an ASAP Rocky kick. It's a good kick. I'll probably use it again someday. Okay, back into the 360 from Mars stuff. There's this delay strings thing. So admittedly, this is one of those things where the part itself is kind of nothing and the processing is like all of the meat to it. As you can see on the actual preset, like I cut it off relatively low. There's a little bit of saturation, a little bit of stereo spread, a little bit of verb, etc. But if you look up here, it's literally like it's just the little like bang. Where the part comes in is through the Echo Boy and the J37. So the J37 is a Waves plugin, and it's another kind of like tape emulation thing, but it's very much supposed to be like an actual like old school tape machine kind of thing, like a reel-to-reel sort of vibe. And for some reason, I think I just wanted to try this plugin. I feel like I've had this one for forever too and haven't used it. And I use Sketch Cassette on everything, which isn't bad. Like there's people who use RC20 on everything, and their stuff sounds great. But this does actually have a different tone to it. So I wanted to just give it a try anyway, and it ended up being a better tone for this specific part. And then I put a little bit of vibrato on the end of this too. So here's the delay string. So on its own, it kind of sounds like nothing, but in the mix, it really like just adds just that little bit of like, I don't know. I feel like I want to find the right word for it. Jeez, why can I not think right now? Ear candy. Good God, how could I not think of that? There are some parts where you don't want people to actually be like, oh, I hear that. That's a really cool part. You just want them to kind of feel it. And I think if you have not been spending a lot of time, even if there's just like one or two elements that you do that with, I really think that will help improve things a lot. I know it has for me. Parts where it's like, oh yeah, I mean, you just sort of like adds to the vibe. That's good. That's a good thing to be trying to do sometimes. Okay, and then finally, we got another E-piano. I think this is a different one. So yeah, this is a second E-piano preset. Basically, the main loop of the song has this guy that we're about to listen to over in the right, and it has these guys over to the left. And let's see, Sketch Cassette on this, obviously. A little bit of compression, a little bit of EQ, sidechain, and a little bit of soothe. So really not too much crazy going on with this one. And this one is kind of just like the pedal that goes through the entire song. And it changes a little bit at times, but for the most part, it's just sort of like this drony sort of thing that stays constant throughout the whole thing. So let's take a listen to that. So yeah, there you go. There's that. And then for this part here, I just haven't sang on anything in a while. This has nothing to do with the 360 from Mars, but I guess this is, in my opinion, kind of like the coolest part of the song. If you can sing at all, and especially even if you can't, and you have like Melodyne or Auto-Tune or like something, just start doing vocal stacks. It's gonna sound interesting because a voice is so unique that it's always going to sound somewhat interesting because you can't hear it anywhere else. So this is the vocal stack. I just did, a lot of people do 3, where they'll do 1 in the center and then 2 on the sides. I just did 2 on the sides. These are 46 right, 45 right, another 2 on the sides, 26 right, 26 left. And then this third one, these are 40 right and 41 left. And then this one down here is a little bit different. We'll get to this in a second. But here's the whole thing. So on its own, it's not that it doesn't sound cool, but it definitely sounds a little bit thinner because the whole low end of the track's not in it. But also the rhythm is definitely different on its own than it feels in the song. There's a little bit of filter freak on this group specifically. Yeah, you can just hear it's just kind of giving that like so nothing too crazy there. And then this down here, this is kind of like, this is the crazy part. So I put pedal on this and I kind of played with the warp modes for different stuff. You can see I chopped this up a lot. So I would warp some of these down to make sort of little like triads out of them. Or maybe it's a triad, maybe it's just a harmony. I don't know what word you would use. And then I put Phase Mistress on it too. The only reason Phase Mistress is automated is because if you leave it on, it's like having like isotope vinyl. Like it just makes noise even when everything is not playing. So I automated it to only be on at this point. But this is this part on its own. And that last one you heard, that was the original thing that I started with for this little stack, and then that's what I chopped up to make all of those different parts. And then I guess I'll do these super quick. This is just a delay print of the vocal stack I just showed you, not the one with all the distortion and stuff, but the stuff before that comes in a couple times in the song, and this is a delay print of that I used to sort of do a rhythmic thing. If you watch the last video, you know I like doing that. So this is that. So I think I pitched some of those down an octave, and then you could hear I automated the clip itself, like the transpose to sort of like taper off, and then some of them I chopped it up to have it be like different, like specifically like a jump in semitone. And then this one right here below that, it's just the same thing. And it's not a Carney beat if there's not a random Foley texture underneath it. So here is, I found this on Splice. It is a bunch of Spanish kids playing in a playground. So yeah, I put sketch cassette on that, Valhalla on it, and I also sent it a lot to the room reverb that I had in the Sends. So yeah, there you go. That's what I did with the 360 from Mars. This was super cool. I really think I'm gonna use this one more. Like I said earlier, this is definitely something that you would not be trying to like make it sound like a real instrument. Like you're not gonna use any of these string presets to like actually do something orchestral. Like you would only use them to do, like I said way earlier, like the Just Like Heaven strings, where it's like the whole point is that it sounds like a synth doing strings. But I'm trying to think what you could use this for. I mean, if you like the E pianos, for example, are very like toy piano sounding at times. So that's what I use those for here. I kind of thought of this as maybe like, I don't know, maybe kind of Danny Brown-ish. And then for some reason, I also thought of it as like, it felt a little bit reminiscent of like a deep cut on like Eminem show or something like that. Not completely, but just like some elements of it. But I think because these are emulations of real instruments, it really just depends on like how you mess them up in a good way to sort of like guide what type of application you would use them for in what type of music. But I really do recommend this. I think it's still on sale, so I think it's like $20. I would say I like this one more than the 101. That's gonna be fun. I'm gonna start doing a power ranking of all the samples from Mars Instruments. So far at number 1, 1, we have the 360 from Mars, and at number 2, we have the 101 from Mars. They're both great, but as of now, I say the 360 kind of takes the cake. This is a terrible idea, because most of these are drum machines, so it's gonna be like an apples and oranges thing, but I'm going to keep it going anyway, because what do I have to lose? All right, guys, this has been fun. I hope you had fun. I sure did. I hope you're all having a good holiday season. I hope that if you're with your family, that you are having a good time. And I hope if you're not with your family, I hope you're with your friends. As I'm recording this video, we are at 296 subscribers. Let's go ahead and get that up, shall we? Seriously, just 4 people. Let's get to 300. That would be sick. Most people who subscribe to this channel are from that Never Meant video I did. So I know it's not necessarily like I have the biggest audience for the music production stuff yet, but hey, a boy can dream. All right, well, as always, let me know in the comments if you have any thoughts or, comments, concerns, admonishments, just anything. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Fellas, catch you in the next one, and say something nice to the ladies on the way out.